Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Talking Horses. Sarah Bodway and Andy Serling as we conclude the penultimate week of racing here at Aqueduct for Belmont at the Big A meet before heading to Saratoga. 9-race card today. We had a little bit of showers this morning, but nothing that's going to affect the racetrack.
No, and nice to get some turf racing for the rest of today. Seems as though everything is on, and things have been a little bit different with the rails being moved over the past week, but definitely worth paying attention to. And just glad that we finally get to talk about some turf races because it's been a while.
Yeah, no, good card today. Looking forward to talking about it. You need to head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, use the promo code BONUS200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. We have a $10,000 hit and split opt-in over at Naira Bets for this. Late pick 5 here, as well as the late pick 5 at Monmouth. Cross country pick 5. 2 at Monmouth, 3 here, including the Wilton Stakes. Race number 7 here, 6, 7, 8 here, 7, 8 at Monmouth. Starts at 3:38 roughly. And so the slate was wrong, but we're multiple channels, so check it out. We're moving back and forth from 12:30 to 5:30. Race number 1. We'll start out by showing Callie's Storm, the 5, who is certainly going to get money getting the switch to Irad Ortiz in this race. And I guess the situation in this race is you've got 2 horses on the outside with a lot of chances, and particularly Callie's Storm, who is kind of the horse to beat, versus first-time starters, a horse that's never been in the dirt, and a horse with 1 start. And I think we've gravitated to the horse with minimal experience, but I don't have a big problem against Callie's Storm. I know she's had a lot of chances, but she is the horse to beat.
She's been consistent. Her last race, it was her best, earning that 51 by her speed figure, finishing second in there. It was a step up from some of her prior efforts, but it's not as though it was such an outlier compared to prior races, and she's just shown up with the kind of performance that could easily get the job done here. Too many chances for me, and just wanted to go with somebody that has had less chances to lose. And I think we see things similarly with the number 2, who's just going out for the second time, who did not break at all in that last start.
I agree. She broke a good 2.5 to 3 lengths behind the field. She really didn't do much running, but felt like a horse that probably needed that race. A lot of Linda Rice second-time stars. And for me, I just didn't want to guess with a first-time starter. The one daytime drama is no pedigree at all. Not that pedigree should matter that much in this race. You have Kerry Bryan with a first-time star as well with the 4. I didn't guess with firsters, so like you, I went to one that had only run once.
And she actually has a little pedigree as well. The 2 that we picked, 5 Dozen Roses. She's a half to a horse that went on debut in Almost Snow, as well as the Shoe Lady, who won her second and third start.
I don't know if being a half to the Shoe Lady is considered good pedigree. Well, even in this race. Race number 2, a bunch of big scratches in here with OP Firecracker and Valenzen Day coming out. And we'll start with Empty Tomb winning last time out, and does appear to be the speed from the rail. And I know Coffray is going to want to go with him in here, but the reality is that with an inside post gives him an advantage. But I'm not enamored with this horse. I end up scratching in this horse from 4th to 2nd as the controlling speed from the inside. But this horse caught a speed track last time and a hungrier field.
I don't like this horse that much. I think that he's one that's tough to trust, but he does at least have some of that back class. I think that he does his better running when he's forwardly placed. So even with that track being to his advantage last time, I thought he was at least one that, relative to who he's going to be facing in here, he's likely to be forward yet again. And also just looking at these 2 coupled entries that we have in here, yes, I scratch into the one that is the shorter price on the morning line, but at least his coupled entry has a complementary running style should he and Coffray be forward, whereas Blake B, I think he does his better running when he's forwardly placed, and I don't think he's fast enough to go with Empty Tomb or Coffray.
Okay. I'm not sure I get that, but okay. I like Celestial Moon in this race for Jamie Ness, who, I don't know, I looked at the last race and thought this horse actually ran pretty well. The horse that won the race came from 7th. I know they're not particular superstars in that race. The speeds finished 3rd, 2nd, and 4th, so he did the best of any of the speeds in that race. He'd been running against better horses before that, including Castle Island. We're taking a look at his last race, and I don't want a horse like Empty Tomb, who had everything his own way last time. Now, maybe he has it again, but I have to imagine Coffray is going to try to at least put some pressure on him, whether or not it's going to be that easy from the outside post. Neither of these horses really excited me. I wanted an alternative, and with the scratches in here, I had picked Celestial Moon on top anyway. With the scratches, he's the only alternative I could come up with.
Yeah, I would love to make some sort of crazy case for Strong Light, but I couldn't quite do it.
Ran well 2 times ago, Strong Light. He's a little tough to take against this group. But his effort 2 back makes him far from impossible in this race. Race number 3 at 1.5 miles on the This is on the inner turf course here, which I thought the inner was a lot more fair yesterday, though the rail's still an advantage. And we'll start with Vesting, who I picked on top, who's the 2-1 morning line favorite. We'll show the race 3 back at Gulfstream finishing second. I think this horse really is better going longer. And with Mike Maker, I also felt this horse could be somewhat forward. I know the pace projector has this horse far back. I'd love to see Joel be a little bit more aggressive in a race that, frankly, doesn't have any speed signed on. I mean, Hamilton's Way is the pace projector speed by default. I'm not sure this horse isn't going to be more forward here. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think he should be relative to the rest of the speed types in this race, and I think he does his better running when he's forwardly placed. When he ran into Greystone, I just did not like that race because it says he went wide, but really he actually was able to save some ground for the first part of that race before moving out, and I could not say that he ran a better race than Greystone in that effort.
I don't think it was one of Tyler's better rides, making that big aggressive middle move in the race. I like to bet on horses that make middle moves like that, and I actually didn't think that race was that bad, but we show Greystone, who you have on top and I have second. He actually ran okay last time. He had some legitimate trouble at the start getting steadied out. My problem with him is he is woefully slow in a race where there just isn't much pace. So while obviously he can win and maybe he's the best horse in the race, I don't want a horse that's coming from as far back as he may be coming.
And that's completely fair. And that's not usually the kind of horse that I gravitate to. But at least with him, we've seen him close into slower paces, or at least paces that have somewhat held together in the past. And I thought at this moment, he had the opportunity to have gone in between horses, and there wasn't the full commitment to that spot. So then he's angling out to go by towards the outside here, and he and the eventual favorite in that race, they both were able to come in from further back, but the other two that were forwardly placed within that superfecta, they were up and on the pace the whole time. So it's not as though things completely fell apart, and I just thought that he and only one other horse in that race really did any running from far back.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, he feels like a horse that's running when the races are over a little bit. The problem is there really aren't that many places to go. I mean, I want to think Bee of Courage is obviously good enough to win this race, but I have absolutely no confidence that he's going to have his same success going 1 3/8 as he does going the shorter distances.
1.5 miles, right?
1.5 miles, sorry.
Yeah, and looking at Greystone too, I don't love that he comes from further back, but he's the only one that has won at 1.5 miles in this spot. And I looked at Bee of Courage for a while, and I thought that he was one that could be an interesting sort of middle price in this spot, but he just hasn't gone anywhere near this far as of yet, and I don't think he necessarily gets better with more distance.
See what happens in race number 3. Lord Flintshire, I thought was just not quite good enough, but he does get Flavien Prat, who is back riding today. Race number 4 will break after 5. A scratch of How Sweet She Is comes out of here. And we'll take a look at Bottle Rocket, the horse that we both have second, finishing second at Delaware last time. I kind of thought this horse was the most logical horse in the race.
She is. I tried a little bit of a case with How Sweet She Is, but with that one coming out, I thought that Bottle Rocket's one that's just been the most consistent as of late. I liked her last 2 races where she finished third in a common race where she really got slammed at the gate 2 starts back. And then I thought that this was a good effort from her where she was able to save some ground and then switch out and get that clear running room, finishing second in there. We saw Big Beautiful, who she faced 2 back, come back and run well to finish second up at Saratoga. She makes some sense in here. I just thought that the one that I ended up with on top might be slightly ahead of her early.
Talk about the Pilata sisters.
Well, when that common race happened and we saw Bottle Rocket really get slammed coming out of the gate with Pilata sisters, she broke a little bit slow, but then ended up in behind horses. And I thought that with her, the kind of back class that she was capable of showing, and also just now making that second start off of the layoff on the grass, maybe she's one that could run a little bit better and be a little bit sharper coming out of the gate this time around.
Yeah, I scratched her for third. I don't like this horse. I think she's always looked a little better on paper than she was at times. And it bothers me a little bit that she was scratched 2 weeks ago at Monmouth, entered for $16,000. And kind of bothers me in here. Entered for $15,000 back in January. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe the clock has kind of struck 12 for her and the connections kind of know it. I realize this isn't the strongest sort of starter optional you'll find for 40, but I think it's a little bit better than where they were intending to run her. I like Temple City's Taboo in this race. Thought she ran against a much, much better field last time. Obviously, she didn't do a lot of running. She was a little bit wide in that race. Not that bad, but I thought all things considered, second time out for Antonia Arriaga, who's been on a good run, and she's actually running in a race she can win for Antonio Arriaga. Arriaga, as opposed to the kind of spot she was in last time, where she had absolutely no chance. The race you mentioned, Big Beautiful running second in.
And she's been capable of being more forward in the past as well and
To be in
running
front.
much better. And she was so far back and just never really got involved at all in that race where she was facing a much better field.
And I think you'll see Jose Lezcano be somewhat aggressive with her from the inside. Race number 6 at 7 furlongs. A bit of a tricky race. Why don't we start the conversation with the horse that you have on top, Middle Market, who I am a little bit skeptical of, but obviously can win.
I don't love this one. I mean, his big sort of win was going this race.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I want to show this race because this is a tricky horse to ride. Because this horse was sort of up closer for Manny and dropped out. And the running line doesn't really do any justice, is why I showed it. This horse was kind of left for dead on the turn and re-rallied to win. Now, maybe the outside post will help. I'm just not sold in this horse. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just wanted to sort of point out about this race.
No, I think that's completely fair. And also, it's last time where he got out of the gate slowly. Yes, he was coming off of a significant layoff, but that's not the first time he's had some issues with antics on the racetrack. So I think that that's a good thing to point out for him. I don't know really what we're going to get from him in here. I just thought that overall, looking at his body of work, he would be one that wouldn't be that completely overbet type of Chad Brown horse dropping in a little bit further for a tag yet again. And I just thought that he was one with that outside post that there are others that have some forward position in here, and he could sit right off of them.
Well, I think you could argue that it's a bit of a positive that he's not running for 20. Because Chad Brown has no problem just dumping these horses for lower prices and trying to win a race and move on. And the fact that he's running the horse for 50 is probably a bit of a positive sign. Now, I don't hope nobody's getting the impression that I've ever spoken to Chad Brown. I don't think I've ever had a conversation about this horse one way or another with him. I can't imagine. Maybe his debut, we talked about him years ago.
If you're going to chat, I don't think it would be wasted on Middle Market.
I haven't talked. Chad called me for my birthday. That's the last time I talked to him. Yeah, no, he can win. I don't know. He just also has that feel where he's going to be a short price, and I don't know. His last race, he was a little wide. He didn't run that badly for a horse that didn't run at all.
I mean, he was coming off over a year layoff, so
at
least there's that. And he was going further, so there are some excuses, but
I'm not his biggest fan. He's going to be short, but he can win.
Yep.
Golden Symphony is going to take a lot of money. We'll show this horse for trainer Brad Cox. I know he didn't show up in the mud last time. He was obviously running against a much better field. And to be fair, this isn't his only good effort. I mean, he's got the 80 buyer back at Churchill and, a lot of synthetic and turf race in between to try to cloud him up. And I think there's a possibility that he's just kind of better than these horses. I didn't pick him on top, but he might just be better than these.
I think it's completely possible. I think that he was facing, of course, tougher company last time, but overall did not feel as though that was the toughest starter 50 that he could have been in. But
it's a lot tougher than this one.
That is completely true. And so with him, I just was worried that he wasn't going to get the same exact kind of trip that he was able to secure when he had that win and broke his maiden for the 79 buyer speed figure that he earned, because doesn't he have to deal with a couple of other horses that want to be forward in here?
Well, he's not the speed in here. I mean, I think Flying Frisbee is clearly the speed.
Yes.
And other horses like Brave Buck are going to be forward as well. I took a shot with Very Stormy. I was looking at him, and I think both the 3 and 6, as you mentioned, are both a little bit flawed, but they are the 3 and 8, the logical horses. And if you go back to Very Stormy, okay, you throw out the turf race. This horse's races, the Tall Paul race was actually pretty good. That was a day the speed held together, had a bit of an issue, nothing major at the start. But I thought he was running good figures. When he beat Call Bob at Saratoga, he made a huge run to get it done, and I thought that was kind of an impressive race. I thought those races were okay, and his figures, while obviously lighter in the best numbers that Golden Symphony runs, they're right up there with pretty much anybody in here. And we've seen Bruce Levine with layoffs do okay at times, and I just thought he might be kind of interesting as a horse. It's a little dirtied up, and if you just sort of zero in on those 2 races, or even 3, he ran 2 in Saratoga and 1 back here in September, he's good enough to compete in here. He'll be a better price, and I just didn't want to take either Golden Symphony or Middle Market, who may well run 1-2 in here.
Yeah, and look, I would have tried to make more of a case for Blown Cover, but I just don't love being claimed away from Linda.
All right, we'll see what happens. And Ray, you've got Brave Buck second. That's a big rider switch to Junior, who can do absolutely no wrong
and
these
tough
days.
Race he was in last time out. That was an extremely tough race for the level.
That was a crazy tough 30, you're right.
So yeah. I felt with him, at least he was forward and faded in there, and that was only a second start.
Yeah, he's a horse that looks like he's moving up in class that probably actually isn't moving up. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with the late pick 4.
Racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah and Andy. We will start race 6, a wide open race. Take a look at Tongue Twister running second last time. And I started my feelings on this race, and I think we both agree that this is about as wide open a race as you can imagine. There is absolutely no horse. If somebody told me they were picking a horse in this race, even I couldn't argue with them, whoever they pick. But you know what? I don't need Tongue Twister at a reasonably short price. I thought this was kind of a phony baloney race. Tongue Twister had an absolute dream trip coming up the rail, and I don't know. I couldn't take this horse off of that trip. And this, to me, smacked of
I
a
thought
field.
this was a better field, right?
It's a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, some people are going to tell you that Spool's better than these. I'm a little bit dubious of that. You've got her second. She can certainly win. I just wanted to take bigger price on top in this race because I think the race is so completely wide open.
It's totally open. I looked at this as an opportunity to have First Time in Forever just not be the favorite for the first time in forever with her.
Well, she wasn't last time.
Well, going back to Saratoga of last year, she ended up being favored several times and
She's
not
a money
getting the job
incinerator,
done.
this horse.
I mean, absolutely. But I will say, at least with her, the ride in that start on May 25th.
It was a terrible ride, and Flavien admits it was a
Absolutely.
terrible ride.
It's so unusual for him that I don't mind mentioning
What
it.
about her next races? What about her next 2 races? I know the figures are good enough and they're better horses, but she's just
not going
got
to
a
be
little
as
bit
short.
of a loser tag
Absolutely.
tied to her.
The
I'm sorry,
thing is
but
that with her, there is that level of consistency where with some of these.
losing. No, you're
But
right.
with
From a
some of
speed
these,
figure
I mean,
standpoint,
look,
she's faster.
And
You're
she's not
wrong.
going to be the favorite today, whereas she
Maybe.
was. I
Maybe.
don't believe so. So at least with her, I think that now second off the layoff, look, she has been disappointing to say the least in a couple of those turf starts. But who do you really hate in this spot?
I don't hate anybody, but what I'm going to say is I've got her second. I'm obviously not against her. I'm not sure she's not going to be favored. I don't think
Really?
this is a morning line that David would want
I don't
to
think
stake
he's-
his reputation on.
That's
because
fair.
he would probably say, I think the 6 is going to be favored, but I would not want to be held to my morning line in this race because there's going to be somebody sort of random bet. And I think First Time Forever is funny because who is she?
Who knows?
Is she the horse in the last race or is she the horse from last year? Because she was awful last time.
She was. I will say she didn't save as much ground as Tongue Twister. She was coming off the layoff. I know that these are mild
She
excuses.
was awful. I mean, I know it was
She
off a
didn't
layoff.
run.
I'm not saying she may be second off a layoff and improve a lot, but I think to argue against, she was awful last time.
No,
I'm not saying
she's
she
not
had
good.
she had a pretty decent trip. She just
But
sat too wide off of Pertriel,
she-
who beat her quite easily, and
she-
she backed up. And it
She
wasn't a gold
also
rail.
ran a terrible race when she came back off of a layoff, even though it was only her third start relative to her second race. So maybe she's just one that needs a moment.
Maybe she is, but she is coming off a bad race, and I think that's a bit concerning for a horse that didn't win when she was good. I got her second. I'm not against her. I'll put it this way. She is a very tough horse to trust. Now, at 9-2, I think she is a very viable play. I'm wondering what price she is.
And
Maybe, and here's the other
it's worth
question. If
finding
she's 6-1 in here, what are you going to think?
Well, I mean, I think that that'll be something that tells me that maybe she can't run at all anymore. However,
Right.
who is going to be an overwhelming favorite in this spot? Nobody.
Well, I think the 2 horses will take the bulk of the money, or the 3 and the.
I just don't think we're going to see a 6-5.
I don't think. Oh no, of course,
Yeah.
of course not. If
Yeah.
somebody in here is under 2-1, you want to book them,
Yeah.
and maybe they will bet more on Gallant Greta, But I don't know.
I think with the
She
rail
beat
positioning,
such a hungry
maybe.
field, though.
I think that she has the look of a horse that's going to take some money, though, of being able to be forward,
Off a
drawing
win.
the rail, coming in off a win, lightly raced still from Mike Maker. It's just clearly her turf races are so much better than her dirt races, so it might look like some dirtied up form. I just don't think she's that good.
I don't either. Listen, I'm not going to be shocked when Howling Wind wires the field. I wish this horse wasn't a Salamini, but there's a little bit of. I mean,
On the dam
I'll
side?
tell you something else. The foal that won from this dam on the turf is a Lauban, and Lauban's not a good turf sire either. So a
Well,
little
a
bit
little
better
bit
maybe than
better.
Salamini, but more of a
Not
dirt sire.
overwhelmingly.
And I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if this horse wires the field with Javi. I would want to include that horse at a price in here. We'll take a look at Sail with the Wind. I know this horse got an absolutely perfect trip last time, but I don't know. I mean, you look through this horse's
horse can
turf
run.
races. Okay, the first one was the debut, and the horse had a trip in that race. The other two turf races are figures that make the horse very contentious here. I don't like the post. This horse
That
is going to
was
have
my
trouble. I
feeling
know.
as
If this
well.
horse, if you switch this horse in Galagretta's post, I might have
Oh,
put
I
this
pick
on
her on
top.
top.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing with the different positioning that we've had on the rails. It's something that I paid a lot of attention to for today because, look, it's not the end-all, be-all, but it's definitely something that she's going to be up against it as a horse breaking from the far outside with a couple that we think are going to be forward in here. And I just don't see her getting the same kind of trip that she got last
well,
time, and she's not going to be the same kind of price.
I don't know. From out there, she'll be a decent enough price.
It's not going to be 11 to 1.
I could see her getting a little bit lost in there from that post. I mean, I don't know. Listen, like I said, David will probably nail this morning line. I think this is a very, very
Which is
tricky
Greg
race.
Wolf's favorite horse.
Well, the thing about Bertriel is that she does occasionally show up with races that give her a chance. And I actually thought her race last time, her first race as a 4-year-old, that might have been the best race she's ever run. That was an honest pace that basically fell apart. She actually ran pretty well in that race, all things considered. Now, she's not the speed in this race, but she's run some okay races in the past. I mean, her best races are probably a little bit of a cut below the best horses here. But she's going to be an awfully big price. And for a horse that's won 2 races at enormous prices, 100 to 1 and 68 to 1, I wonder if there's ever been a horse with 2 lifetime wins that were an average price of 84 to 1.
Well, do you think you're going to get something like that today?
No, but I don't think I'm going to get 8 to 1. I think I'm going to get every bit of 12 to 20
Look,
to 1.
she's going to be a big price in
And
here.
I mean, I thought she actually ran pretty well last time. I thought showing more speed, a good prep off a layoff, and I just wanted somebody to price in this race because I ain't betting Gallant Greta or First Time Forever or Tongue Twister at short prices. I'm just not doing it.
I wanted to make more of a case for Boxed Wine, but she just doesn't seem quite fast enough either. A horse that had some early
plotter,
promise
too.
where she had faced some types like these and been competitive, but not really the case anymore. And I even looked at From Hello, who has back races that would fit in here and is
Agree.
one that she ran towards the end of last year only twice, and maybe those best races are behind her. But as you were saying to me, even Rwanya is still lightly raced as well,
can
has
win.
numbers that absolutely fit in here. Tour Jeté,
There's
we
no
saw come back
chance
and
horse
run
in
well.
here. There's no horse
Yeah.
in this race.
I would want a
that
lot of
can't
coverage
win.
in any late
I
multis
will
in here.
say about the Tour Jeté race about Roagna, that was a bad effort by her because that was a fast pace that completely and totally incinerated, and she still didn't do any running.
But
so
then she was off, and
I'm
has
just,
time.
but
You know,
she's off because it was the end of
there's
turf
no turf.
season. It's not, but she can win. I'm not.
Yeah.
But what I would say to people is if you have an idea in this race at a price, bet it. Don't let anybody dissuade you. Well, race number 7, the Wilton. I'm wondering if we should rename the Wilton the Home Depot because, as many of you know, Wilton, New York, near Saratoga, and now the race has been moved here. Maybe we should name it for something more local. Maybe we name it the Howard Beach. Do we have a Howard Beach?
We do. No,
I
no, we
don't
don't anymore.
know.
We could always go with
Could have an
Rockaway
Ozone
Beach.
Park. Could have a Howard Beach.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Plenty of
I
options.
like Liam in the Dust. Hate when I get scratched into a horse. We'll take a look at the horse that I scratched into, Mazayat, who I said was going to be overbet off that win last time out in the mud. Beat a horse that came back to duplicate the figure, but maybe this one's improving. And I've got the hot barn.
You sure do.
I'm not excited by this race with the scratch, to be honest.
I still am because I liked a little bit of a price in here. But Mazayat, look, she has been showing that progressive improvement from each start where she's run the 3 times and had that career best last time. The figure did hold up, though it didn't necessarily show up with horses improving off of it, with Merceau coming back from there. I just felt like she was going to have to do things a little bit differently in this spot because it seems as though there is plenty of other speed and she is the inside most of the other speed types.
Really? I thought the only other speed was Dry Powder.
You don't think that they're going to go with Pink Ruby?
I don't know. Maybe. She could go. I
she
guess she
had
could.
6 furlong speed, 2 back.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever Junior does will probably work out for him. I'm not in love here. We'll show Dry Powder's last race. I don't trust Dry Powder, but to be fair, She's run well in both of her starts, and I don't think she's going to be a surprise if she wins here.
She has. And look, Scottish Lassie was forward and then ended up falling apart in this spot, coming in off of the
Well, she had
layoff.
no
A horse with
race.
plenty of talent. And I don't hold this against her too much, but she still ended up finishing third as the favorite. And Dry Powder was able to go by her, a horse that is extremely talented and capable. I just thought that she was going to be one that didn't necessarily benefit from Maziat to her inside showing speed. And I thought Pink Ruby to the outside as well showing speed.
All right. I don't think Luca Panici did anything wrong in this horse, but Jose Lezcano is a better rider, so it doesn't hurt that Jose is going. What about Sweet Seraphine for Cherie? I had mixed feelings about her. I scratched in her second. You have her second as well. She's coming out of a relatively slow race where she got a very juicy trip in a race that fell apart. And looking up numbers for Cherie off maiden wins in the dirt, just 4 for 26 routes. She's 1 for 16 with a 33-cent ROI. And those are not good stats for a horse that needs to improve to win this race. The best thing she's going for is if you think the pace is going to be fast, which you think more than I do,
She'll be
then
right
she
there.
should get a decent trip, the setup, because she is probably the biggest closer along with your horse, who I don't know what you're going to tell me that's going to persuade me to think Cat Chat has a chance in here.
I don't know that I'm going to persuade you, but that's the fun of this. Look, she's one that making that second start, first time on the dirt, she's running into a horse like Shred the Gnar, who is very talented, and she was coming in off of that break, so I don't hold that race against her. I thought that she was able to sit a much better trip and actually pass horses in both of those last two starts, and the numbers for Mark Hennig coming into stakes here at NYRA, they're not good on dirt going the routing distance. But with her, if I am right about the pace, and it's a big if because we never really see pace materialize quite as much as we might think it would on paper in here, she is the one that has the opposite running style to those horses that I thought would be forwardly placed at a price, and is one that I respect the company that she kept when she made her dirt debut. I thought that she ran well in those next two starts. Yes, it was an off the turf race last time
Three-horse field.
in a three-horse field where she was able to get the victory. But if you go back to her other races, the one at Gulfstream where she won, and the one before that, those are some okay horses, at least relative to who she runs into here. So I thought that with the pedigree that she has also, she'd have to steal Sunshine, 7-time sprint winner. Maybe she's one that could take that next step forward and be a little bit more competitive if she gets the right kind of trip.
Okay. I didn't see her, but okay. See what happens in the Wilton. Race number 8. Well, if you didn't have Warolo last time, you missed the boat. And it's funny, we'll take a look at his race. And this is a very different situation for him. Though with the scratches, I think he's helped out a little bit. I ran to Chris Englehart, and I had made fun of him after this race, and said, Chris, what were you doing? You didn't run this horse in the turf. And I ran into him walking into Saratoga one of the days a couple weeks ago, and he said, I deserved all of that abuse. And we were laughing about it. He said, you know, as we both said, it's not as though he didn't have some decent race on dirt and stuff. And he said, but we were laughing because a 6-year-old,
War Dancer,
mean,
trying the turf for the first time.
he had a big dam side pedigree.
Yeah.
I mean, he's run some very good dirt races, to
He
be fair.
has.
But, I mean, to be honest, if you felt the turf was fair, he's way the horse to beat. I mean, we both got him second, but that was a huge effort. You missed the boat at 8-1 last time.
Well,
but
I didn't, but plenty of other people did.
I didn't either. But regardless, it was a universal we
Yes.
at 8-1. And now he's a much, much shorter price against a better field, but he ran terrific last time.
He did. I was really impressed with his effort last time. He made some sense with that switch in surface, and he really showed up with a big race in there, and I agree. I think he is helped by Twisted Filigree coming out of this race, a horse that was projected to be the speed. But I just don't.
Noise and Power Attack going, and Fancy Clancy.
And I just don't see Warolo getting the same kind of trip that he got last time, especially now being towards the outside. Yes, there are scratches in this race, but I didn't think he was going to work out something that was identical to the last race against what looks like tougher horses.
Well, the concern is that it was fair turf last time, and if it was a fair turf course, I wouldn't worry about it as much in here. But we are seeing a turf course where Saving Ground has been a premium, especially this week, last week too, but this week even with the rails moved. So that does work against him a little bit. We'll take a look at Yarrow, who you scratched into on top, winning last time out. I'm a big fan. Getting the rail certainly is not going to hurt him.
He's just been very consistent. I like that he's coming back in here off of an effort that was a win over Twisted Filigree, who we won't see play in this spot. Icy Flavor, who finished third in there, is a horse that can generally be forward. And looking at who wants to be forward in this race, I thought that he would just be sitting the right kind of pocket trip right behind them. He's not too pace compromised where he's this deep closer that needs to come from far back. I thought that Manny rides him well. He's bet on him several times and successfully so. And I just felt as though he's one that he's run well fresh, though he hasn't won off the layoff in the past, and he would get the right kind of setup.
No, he's a major player in this race. There's no doubt about it. And he draws the perfect post. I like Vacation Dance. I think this is a very interesting trainer switch to Brad Cox. Mostly he's been in the Kimmel Barn, has run some good races. I know that Todd had this horse 2 races. One of them was a 5-furlong race against an impossible field at Gulfstream, and the other was a mile, and he's not a miler. He's a sprinter. And he's got turf sprints that are fast enough to win. 2 draws inside, gets IRAD. Don't think I'm going to get a huge price on him, obviously the scratches, but he's where I end up here. Scratches, though, have changed this race with a couple of players coming out of here as well. I also thought Power Attack a little bit dangerous because Power Attack could be the speed of the speed. And he's dirtied up a little bit. You go back, he was very good here last spring, running those good races. And if he gets loose in the lead, he could be a little bit dangerous. I moved him up after the scratches.
I just don't worry that I worry that he's not the same horse that he was at that time. But I think he is helped by the other main speed in this race, scratching, and I think he'll be in front early.
Yeah, I don't mind him going back to Bruce. I think at a price he's worth throwing in. Race number 9. Let's start with the logical horses. We'll show a replay of Majorca and McHale running 2-3. You know, my general feeling is I don't want horses out of the right to win race. This was a terrible field.
It was, and Right to Win still got the victory, even though he wanted to lug in towards the rail. And it took all of Manny Franco's strength to get him to get that outside position for the clean outside run, and he still barely gets the victory. With the 2 horses that are coming out of this race that were forward in there, I did not see either of them sitting the same kind of trip because, look, Majorca, first time on the turf, ran well, showed speed, but isn't going to be on the inside yet again. And McHale, I couldn't make the case for him turning the tables on that one in this spot with the horse that you end up having on top, who I think is potentially the speed of the speed right in between
He's supposed to be the speed of the speed. Lane is supposed to go no holds bar, go to the front in this race, and the reality is he's coming out of a race against a graded stakes quality field compared to these horses, and I don't even think he ran that badly because that race completely and totally incinerated. It's a major rider upgrade, in my opinion, to Lane Luzzy as well. So I'm going to take a chance on him to wire the field. And if you look at my picks, what you'll see, and I stayed away from horses that are coming out of the right to win race. You do have the 2-second, but that horse will be a price. You have my friend Steve's big trip horse, the Hero Code, on top. He's the one who convinced me to put this horse 3rd.
Yeah, not me. Someone else.
No, Steve was going about this horse last night to me. I don't totally agree with him, but go ahead.
He looked like he was auditioning poorly for the New York City Ballet in that last turf race. He was leaping up in the air through at least like the first half of that race and just fighting with Katie the whole way, where he's kept changing leads and jumping up and throwing his head and just very unsettled early on. And Katie Davis is a rider that gets along with horses that can be kind of problematic. So I also wonder, could it have been worse with somebody else aboard if they tried to take more of a hold of him? And then he comes out of a very tough dirt race. He's not a dirt horse. And he's one that, yes, maybe he can't run at all anymore. But there is that pedigree there for him. And he is one that is going to be a huge price in here. We saw several of the horses in his last turf start come back and run well on Friday. 4 of them returned, one of them winning, another finishing 2nd, another 3rd in Mayor.
Oh, that was a much, much better
of
field
Midnight, Royals Pride, a Bourbon for Toby. All of them improved. I know we've seen some fast times on the turf course, so I don't want to say that they took this big dramatic step forward, but they all did take a step forward, and he's just one that I thought would be a good enough price in here with plenty of excuses that wouldn't be too far back early on.
Yeah, I think he's possible. He probably should have won at Tampa back in December of 23. On the other hand, he would have won with a perfect trip. If he hadn't gotten shuffled back around the 3/8 to half mile pole, he probably wins that race, but he would have won it with a perfect trip. He can win. I mean, I hadn't really thought about him that much, and Steve was talking to me about him yesterday, and I started looking at his races. I don't know what to make of his race with Katie, to be honest. He was a little bit wide there. I'm not sure, but in this field, listen, he also fits the bill to me.
He does.
He didn't run in the right to win race, and I want horses from the right to win. That's why. I mean, isn't Come Rain or Come Shine? Well, I'm thinking of the song Come Rain or Come Shine. We'll take a look at the last race. This horse actually had legit trouble at the start. Just broke 7 or 8 lengths behind the field. This is a Colonial last year, and obviously should have won. The problem is that he's burned a lot of money as the favorite, but I'm not convinced this horse might just not be better than these horses.
And isn't he going to be a much fairer price today in all likelihood?
Well, we'll see. This is
a
very hard race to bet.
as he was last time.
I don't think your 5's going to be 20 to 1.
No?
No. too
Okay.
many smart people like this horse, and there's
Well, I
reasons to
don't know
like
how
him that
smart
make
we are.
sense.
Trainer has
I'm
terrible
not,
stats on the turf, just 1 for 36.
I don't think he's going to be 20 to 1.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he's going to be that big a price, but maybe he is. I mean, I think you have to look at the maiden special to maiden claiming race drop downs in this race. Now, I don't hold as much in it with Come Rain or Shine, because even though
It's
he
not
ran
the
for the
first
waiver
time.
as a Maryland bred in those races, they still were basically maiden claiming races. But in general, I think any horse that is dropping from maiden specials to maiden claimer in this race has to be used if you're spreading around in multi-race bets.
No, he's a
because
player for
the
sure.
favorites are extremely weak. Majorca
I
at
agree.
5 to 2.
No, thank
I'd
you.
rather set my money on fire.
And I will say, I don't love the right to win race either, but I do have Nilrook backwards Curlin in there because he's the only one that didn't save ground and actually made a move from the back of the pack in that spot versus the others, and he was still going to be enough of a price. And I thought that he definitely outran those 90 to 1 odds to finish 5th and at least close up last time.
And he draws well in the rail. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for watching. Kyle, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. You're going to be home rooting for the Pacers tonight, aren't you? You really are. No?
He
OKC?
says no.
Oh, that's good. You're on the right side. It's good to hear. All right. Head over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code bonus200. We'll match for $200 of your initial deposit. When you've done that, you can opt in for the $10,000 hit and split, the late pick 5 here in Monmouth. We've given you all sorts of perhaps decent ideas in the late pick 5 today.
Perhaps.
We have a cross country, 2 at Monmouth, 3 here. All these races we showed in America's Day at the races. Did you fix it, Eddie? You're the worst.
Ugh,
you really
Eddie.
are. You've moved below Kyle on the scale, and that's
Come
bad,
on.
let me tell you. Very bad. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. Chris Griffin up next for the reprise. Scratch and changes. Have a great day.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet.